Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Friday to you. Getting a little bit of a late start on the video. I have been actually working for my day job early in the morning. But nonetheless, I really do appreciate y'all joining me this morning. I'm going to focus a lot of this video on the threat for severe weather in the Northeast today, and then the next storm in the plains, which takes aim at the Midwest and the Northeast over the weekend and first part of next week. A very active northern and central weather track here over the next few days. And fortunately, that's cooled things off for us in the mid-Atlantic, Northeast, the Great Lakes, even the upper Midwest. We're seeing at least a preview of fall temperature-wise, but the rain is starting to get excessive. The severe weather is getting old fast. And unfortunately, for those of you in the South Central states and Florida, you're not really benefiting from these fronts that are coming down. You're avoiding most of the severe weather, but we're looking at, I think, the ninth straight day of record heat in parts of Louisiana and Arkansas today. So my thoughts are with you guys because the heat is kind of a silent killer. I've been reading articles about it. It doesn't necessarily kill, but people that have health conditions are affected by heat a lot more, and that can lead to, unfortunately, more complications. So if you are somebody who is a praying type like I am, just keep the folks in your prayers that are dealing with this excessive heat that maybe have health challenges down south. I know it's quite a few. So anyway, when I do these forecasts, I do it all with sympathy, with grace, and understanding that we're all going through things. And my goal is to just kind of try to take some of that anxiety away from you, but yet make sure you're aware of what's going to be a problem. So here is today's map, and we're looking at what could be some tornadoes. Not a huge outbreak, but certainly a threat for tornadoes from NEPA, northeastern PA, right through eastern New York into western and southern parts of New England. And that will follow with more severe weather starting today across the plains and spreading over the weekend across the Mississippi River Valley into the Ohio River Valley and lower Great Lakes as we get into the second part of the weekend. And again, that takes aim at the Northeast here on Monday. So we could catch our breath in the Northeast tomorrow into Sunday, maybe clean up from some of this severe weather we're going to be dealing with. But unfortunately, another storm, which looks to be more significant, will be moving in early next week. Down south, we are going to be dealing with unsettled weather, but when you get closer to the Gulf Coast, you unfortunately are dealing with the double threat of extreme heat and then maybe some nasty storms as we get some instability with that daytime heating. Another triple-digit day for many folks, unfortunately. And I'll break that down for you guys here in just a little bit. Here is the hazards map. You can see we know where the heat is in the Southwest, in Texas, in the South Central states. Still hot in Florida, although not quite as extreme. Excessive heat warnings here are in darker pink from southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri, right through eastern Oklahoma, southern and central Arkansas, central and southern Mississippi, northern and southeast Louisiana, northeast Texas, and bounded by heat advisories as well. And of course, excessive heat in Arizona, where it's just been an extremely hot second half of the summer. But that is dangerous, don't get me wrong. But what else is dangerous is this ongoing flooding we're seeing here across eastern Missouri and right on down into northern Alabama. These darker reds indicate flash flood warnings, and there are several of them from central Missouri down into north central Alabama. We have a flood watch as well in northern New England, at least for the North Country here, and a flash flood watch over parts of Wyoming, Montana, and the Dakotas. So very active weather here as we head into the weekend. Looking at high temperatures today, this is the National Weather Service forecast. I should have been showing this every day this week, but it really is a broken record. It's gotten old fast. 104 in Oklahoma City, 106 in Dallas, 104 in San Antonio, 103 on the north side of Houston, 101 in Baton Rouge, my hometown, which this will be the, I believe, seventh straight day of triple-digit heat and seventh straight day of record heat. I lived in Louisiana for quite some time as a kid and young adult. We got hot, we got humid, but this kind of heat wave is kind of rare. So unfortunately, no relief coming from this heat today. Tomorrow, more of the same, even 110 in Wichita Falls, Texas. Yuck is what I say to that. Here's Sunday, 101 again in Baton Rouge and Shreveport, 106 in Dallas, 105 in places like Schertz, Texas, 105 in Round Rock. No thank you. Monday, still very hot. You can see Oklahoma, though, is starting to cool down. Same with Arkansas. And in Jackson, we dropped below 100 to 99. That will help. I know it's still very hot, but Little Rock 91, 89 in Oklahoma City. You can at least get some relief in your air conditioning bill, excuse me, early next week. But we're still roasting hot here. Spring, Texas, the Woodlands 104, College Station 104, 107 down towards Del Rio. Tuesday, down to 96 in New Orleans, still above average, but at least not quite so brutal. 100 in Dallas, and look at this, we're into the mid 90s on the Red River, so we'll take what we can get at this point. This is Wednesday, and no relief coming for Central or North Texas, really. Still pretty hot on the Gulf Coast, but at least a little bit closer to the average. And then Thursday, unfortunately, we're back to triple-digit heat in Baton Rouge and Lafayette and Alexandria, Louisiana, maybe even close to Macomb and Brookhaven, Mississippi. 106 in Dallas, 108 in Stephenville, and how about 111 in Midland, Odessa? Thanks, but no thanks. And that heat starts rebuilding. So moral of the story is this excessive heat, for those of you in the South Central states, is not going away anytime soon. We get temporary relief in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas for a few days here early next week, but the front does not make it all the way towards the Gulf Coast states, unfortunately for us. You can see our areas of active weather, one big thunderstorm complex over the same place that we saw it yesterday. Sounds like a broken record, but south and west of St. Louis, Paducah, Cape Girardeau, Sikeston, western half of Tennessee, places like Paris, Puryear, Clarksville, Jackson, Tennessee, right on down into Huntsville, Muscle Shoals, Decatur, Alabama, Tupelo, Mississippi, into western Georgia as well, places like Rome and LaGrange, Georgia, dealing with that. You can see a pretty good spin up here over eastern Canada, strong front moving into the northeast. We've got unsettled weather already, but with some daytime heating and another impulse behind it, we're going to see active weather this afternoon, maybe some tornadoes over portions of New England and the northeast. And a big circulation here over Wyoming, lots of moisture coming up directly from the Pacific right into the northern plains and even the prairies of Canada. Not really a huge severe threat, but certainly a big rain threat over parts of Montana and the western Dakotas. Where the severe weather looks to be a problem will be over parts of Nebraska and Kansas. We did have one storm complex last night that brought some significant severe weather. Hasn't really lasted. It's kind of fading, but we are going to see more of the same here today in some of the same locations. And nothing but dry air aloft here on the Gulf Coast. That's why it's getting so hot. We just don't have enough instability to really get the clouds to bubble up quickly and produce widespread storms like we're used to this time of the year in the Gulf Coast. So here's our excessive rainfall outlook today. Moderate risk for flooding, high plains, Great Plains, slight risk for flooding, although it is flooding already, but additional rain, I'm not going to say it's not going to be significant, but not as severe over parts of the Missouri, Mississippi valleys. And we do have a threat for some flooding over parts of central and northern New England. So down East Maine over into the White and Green Mountains here, especially those higher elevations. Do be on the lookout for quickly changing conditions as that rain piles up. The rivers have already been very high with all the rain we got in July. Unfortunately, no relief coming from that today. Maybe some heavy rain as well over parts of the southeast. I'm especially concerned about briefly heavy rain over the Tidewater region and the Great Dismal Swamp here in Virginia this morning. Tomorrow, we see the threat for severe weather and flooding coming down in the east, but we have heavy rain threats over the plains into the Great Lakes for Sunday. Monday, another threat for locally heavy rain over the Great Lakes into the northeast. And our next storm complex dives down into the same locations and maybe some heavy rain for parts of the deep south for the day on Tuesday, as well as parts of northern New England. Severe weather, slight risk today from central PA up into southwestern New Hampshire. That includes a 2% risk for tornadoes in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Binghamton, New York, Albany, Springfield, just west of Springfield, Massachusetts, places like Keene, New Hampshire, maybe up to Middlebury, and north of Albany, places like Glens Falls. We do have that 2% chance for tornadoes, bounded by a 15% chance for severe wind. So we will have some intense storms later today. We'll also see intense winds again later today into this evening, the same exact spot as yesterday, Kansas, eastern Colorado, and Nebraska. And some heavier microbursts are possible anywhere in this region, all the way down into the eastern Gulf states, including eastern Arkansas, most of Missouri. Again, if you're in Missouri, this has just been kind of the week to forget here when it comes to weather, and a threat for some hail as well in the northeast and in parts of the midsection and the plains. Tomorrow, the storm in the northeast moves away. We may still have some thunderstorms in parts of Atlantic Canada and Maine. Unsettled with daytime heating in the southeast, but the organized severe weather with our next storm system is right in the center of the country, and that does include a 2% chance for tornadoes over parts of the Dakotas, maybe sneaking into Minnesota and Iowa later on. A bigger area of severe wind and hail, though, across this region. Sunday, that area still could have a few showers and storms, but the severe threat does push east, and this one could be significant for some of you in Illinois, Indiana, and northern Kentucky. So if you're in that region Sunday heading to church, make sure you still have your phone handy so that you can receive watches and warnings. I do think there will be some widespread wind damage in this region here. There could be a few tornadoes, not the kind we saw in March and April, but certainly still there could be a few. But strong wind, heavy rainfall, centered on the middle part of Indiana. So Indianapolis area, certainly in the afternoon on Sunday, we've got to watch for that. And in the Northeast and Eastern Lakes, we are looking at active weather again for Monday. Not yet to New England, but Pennsylvania, Western and Central New York, West Virginia, most of Maryland and Virginia, and moving away from Eastern Kentucky and Eastern Ohio. Heavy rain, locally strong winds, possible tornadoes, and some hail as well for the day on Monday. We'll quiet down some Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as far as widespread severe weather. If I were somebody who bet, though, I would be betting there'll be some severe weather reports over parts of the southern plains and southeast as we get towards Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Here's a look at the European model. You can see here's our next storm system spinning nicely here over Montana. Lots of rain falling. You can see that front draped down across Missouri, where it's been parked pretty much all week into the southeast states. That low pressure system is going to advance eastward tomorrow, and you'll see deepening low pressure over the Dakotas, heavy rain north of it, locally strong to severe storms south and east of it, moving right along the periphery of this ridge of high pressure. Saturday night, it moves into Minnesota and Iowa. There could be a little severe weather there. Sunday, though, we're looking at more active weather here in the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, and spreading into parts of the Tennessee Valley as well. And then that low moves away Monday morning, still over parts of Michigan, but quieter, cooler, more comfortable weather finally for Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota here for Monday. But here's our next system. It's ready to jump down along the periphery of this strong high pressure ridge, and we're going to see more complexes of storms battering Kansas and parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and parts of the deep south here Tuesday into Wednesday and Thursday. Lots of rain coming. If we look at total precipitation just in the central part of the country, through next Thursday, you can see massive amounts of 5-6 inches here in the high plains, 3 to 6 inches in the same areas that are getting hit hard here, parts of Missouri, parts of western Tennessee, northern and central Alabama, Mississippi, quite a bit of rain coming. If we look east, we see certainly heavy rain possibilities over the northeast, eastern Canada, locally heavy rain here in parts of the mid-Atlantic states, quieter across South Carolina. You guys got hit hard yesterday. Today will be quieter. But we may get some drenching rain over parts of Florida out of this next front as well. Here's the upper level pattern. You can see one low pressure system aloft spinning over Quebec, next one over Montana. These are both the big storm makers here, the big storms, I should say, big rain makers over the next 2 days. A bit of an impulse as well, moving down through the southeast here today and tonight. So it will stay active in Georgia and over the eastern Carolinas. Not the best start to the beach weekend for those of you trying to sneak in a weekend at the beach here right before school gets cranking up here again in the southeast. Here's our next big storm. You see it kind of dive south and east here. Winds aloft will pick up. Bit of an impulse ahead of it here. We need to watch closely where this ends up here in Illinois and Indiana because this little leading short wave is what we call it. Could be the kind of the impetus for some tornadoes if we do see a stronger wind field aloft. Even though the upper low is in Iowa, if we get some stronger winds out ahead of it, that band where there will be some heating could contribute to some more supercell type thunderstorms. And that'll be Sunday afternoon over Illinois, Indiana, maybe northern Kentucky. That short wave lifts into the northeast Monday. The main storm system is moving through the Chicagoland area and spreading eastward. So again, falling heights here, active weather expected for Monday. And here's a look at the HRRR forecast radar, sorry about that, for the next few days. And we see heavier storms again moving through this region, diving right down the boundary here, active weather in the northeast. I'll zoom in and show you guys more detail in just a minute. Storm complex makes it into the eastern Gulf here tomorrow night. More storms moving out of Kansas into Arkansas, just over the same exact areas, and we are going to see some severe weather. It's pretty wet across northern New England. Real quick, I'll show you Maine here and surrounding provinces. We're mainly just looking at a band of heavy rain through about lunchtime, but additional storms fire up, and we've got to watch some of these for some rotation over New Hampshire, eastern New York, and Vermont around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Also keep an eye on things south and east of Quebec City and Montreal. These will track into Maine and weaken a little bit here towards this evening, but heavy rain, lots of lightning are expected. And then heading towards the Maine seacoast this evening, quieter weather expected overall for the day tomorrow. We could see a few pop-ups in places like Fredericton and over towards Caribou, and even down east towards Bar Harbor and Bangor and parts of the seacoast here, it looks like, but quieter for tomorrow into Sunday morning. Southern New England, this is the area I'm a little bit more concerned about here. We'll see some storms around Boston here mid-afternoon, but watch out in Connecticut, Western Mass, and Southeast New York around 5, 6 o'clock. These storms do have potentially some big hail coming and a few tornadoes. I don't think we're seeing 20 tornadoes, but we certainly could see a few. And the tornado threat lessens as we get towards dark tonight, but we still have the strong storm chance moving southeast through southern New England and Long Island. And then it quiets down overall overnight. Still some coastal mass rain, and the islands get hit hard here overnight. But it should be a much better day for tomorrow. Looking farther west into northeastern PA, NEPA I call it, even the Williamsport, Binghamton, Scranton, Hazleton, we're going to be under the gun here anywhere from 3 to about 8 o'clock. Then things will drop southward towards the Lehigh Valley, towards the Delaware Water Gap here around 7, 8 o'clock. We could have rough weather even down into New York City, but I think most of it ends up north and west of you. New Jersey, eastern PA here up to about 9, 10 o'clock tonight. A zoomed out view of the HRRR shows you that. Unfortunately, we're back to Zulu time. This is 10 o'clock Eastern. We still could be active north and west of Philly and around New York City and Boston here around 10 o'clock tonight. And then things will just be weakening as we get overnight, but still some heavier storms possible. We're going to have a wet morning as well in the Tidewater of Virginia, the eastern shore, the southern Delmarva. Could see significant rain for a while. Probably not a lot of severe weather, but there could be a few storms firing up over eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia this afternoon. We are looking better, though, tomorrow. Actually, look how quiet things are tomorrow. So Saturday is the day to get outdoors and clean up the yard after these storms. We have the next system that will be slowly moving in from the west here on Sunday, but Saturday looks much better across this region. It'll start warming up as well as we get some sunshine back out here. Active weather again today in the southeast. We're mainly looking at Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Storms are going to track southeast into Florida this evening. They should weaken overnight. Another wave coming tomorrow, same exact spot. The Panhandle and southeast Alabama could get crushed here tomorrow afternoon, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, even the Mobile Bay area into tomorrow evening, and another wave comes down. So after we're heating up very quickly into the 90s, we've got all that storm fuel for additional rounds of heavy rain and severe weather. And then back in the plains, here comes our next wave here this evening over Colorado, Nebraska, western Kansas, overnight moving into eastern parts of these states. And then tomorrow, another wave of severe weather expected across Kansas, across Iowa, and then eventually moving into Missouri. And real quick, in the north central plains and Montana, nothing but rain here over the next several days, several hours of that, maybe some locally strong storms in eastern South Dakota, northwest Iowa here tomorrow between about 6 o'clock and midnight, and then moving east into Wisconsin and Illinois as we get into Sunday. The tropics are quiet overall in the Atlantic. I don't think it stays that way, but definitely quiet in the Gulf and the Caribbean for the time being. The Pacific is busier. We've got a disturbance here that could be a storm. And then Hurricane Dora, small, but exploring a lot of the open waters of the Pacific. It was a Category 4. I'll talk about that in a sec. Looking pretty good here, though, off the west coast. Strong wind shear, big trough. Nothing's going to form here the next several days. In the deep tropics, we do have some flare-ups to keep an eye on. This system I am watching. Every model has tried to develop something big enough here, but it just hasn't really happened yet. This one could survive, though. Give it some time. We're going to have to watch it coming into the western Atlantic and towards maybe Florida and Cuba. Behind it, another wave to watch, but still, we're going to struggle to see development from these systems here. I've been jumping at it like every other model has, and it just hasn't happened. And the wind shears just ended up being a little bit too strong for these to sustain. But this is producing tropical depression force winds, 30 to 35 mile per hour winds, but it's not organized at this point. You can see some models try to develop it here north of Hispaniola next Thursday and Friday. We'll keep an eye on it. If it gets close to the Bahamas, then we could have more of a threat. But this is still a week or more beyond, so lots can still change. The operational GFS loves to get aggressive with these systems. It doesn't do anything until next weekend near the Bahamas. It does show something that may survive into the Gulf the week of the 14th. Some solutions have taken it north towards Florida, others west towards Texas and Mexico. Again, it's possible we could have a system towards the middle of the month in the Gulf. No promises yet on that. But obviously, with the warm waters, if we do have low enough wind shear, we do have a potential threat. But 2 weeks out, no promises on that. Hurricane Dora is still a Category 4 storm, 130 mile per hour winds, actually got up to 140 yesterday, but no threat to land. It's going to go well south of Hawaii as a hurricane. Calvin was the threat to Hawaii that weakened to a weaker storm because the waters are cooler here. Farther south here in the 10 to 12 north latitudes, we are still warm enough to support a hurricane. But you can see the models do not threaten Hawaii at this point. The intensity should level off as well, Category 1 next week. Our typhoon is down to a tropical storm, thank goodness, but it is not moving much. So we are continuing to have big time problems over the East China Sea, including Okinawa. And this is going to turn right back and hit areas that have been hit already with heavy rain. Kanun is the storm. And then unfortunately, the mainland of Japan and beyond may see typhoon conditions or at least strong tropical storm conditions later next week. You can see this is definitely not the powerful storm it was a few days ago. Here's Okinawa, but unfortunately, if you're in Okinawa, you have not seen this storm let up. The winds have come down, the rain has not let up, so a major flood threat here for these islands. I pulled up a map of Japan to show you guys. These are called the Ryukyu Islands. Okinawa is at the southern end of it, but this storm is going to now impact the northern parts of these islands here next week, and then the island of Kyushu, where my brother ended up going. He was supposed to be in Okinawa. Now he's here, and I'm really hoping he gets out and gets back to Korea here next week. We may be dealing with typhoon conditions in this portion of southwestern Japan. You can see the ensembles no longer threaten China, but they do pull things through the Ryukyu Islands and then up into southwest Japan here towards the middle of next week with typhoon strength possibilities. And then a track over potentially South Korea or North Korea and China here towards next weekend. I keep mentioning this because I know we do have friends and family overseas. Some of us watching do anyway. So look, my thoughts and prayers are with you guys. This storm is just a pain in the butt to forecast. It's not moving quickly, and lots of folks are dealing with nasty wind and rain. You can see while the storm has weakened, it is expected to potentially intensify as it leaves the East China Sea and heads back out to the south of Japan and then turn back and hit southwest Japan potentially as a big storm here next Tuesday, and then slowly move through southwest Japan on Wednesday and maybe affecting Korea on Thursday into Friday. It will weaken at that point. Oh, by the way, the GFS still thinks there could be another storm that maybe tries to get into the northeastern half of Japan here the following weekend, but too far off in the future to make any bold calls at this point. So I will have a video for you all in the morning tomorrow as we're looking at an active weekend over the Midwest and eventually into the Northeast again next week. And parts of the South are still going to have some strong storms as well. We had a surprise weaker tornado in Pickens, South Carolina yesterday. We had flooding in northern and central Alabama, lots of wind. So it's still very active down south and very hot in the south central and southwestern United States. More to come on the tropics tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time today. I really hope you all have a blessed Friday and a great weekend. And if you're new to this channel or you've been watching and haven't subscribed yet, could you please do that for me? It helps. It helps me grow my reach. We also have a membership channel for those of you who want a little bit more and don't mind donating 33 cents a day to have more personal forecasting and more of a personal connection with me. I am an expert meteorologist. I'm also a child of God. I give God all the glory for this as a Christian man. He's given me a second chance at life here since I accepted Christ when I was 30. I'm now 41 years old, and we all have a gift from God, whether or not we choose to accept that. But we all are given a gift. We also are all called to share in God's glory. And I know that that's what I really want to do with you guys. It's very easy to be discouraged. It's very easy to turn away from God during tough times, whether it be a personal struggle or work challenges, a family relationship that's fractured, or a medical struggle. It's very tough to say to God, why have you done this to me? And really, God has not done it to you. What God wants you to do is turn to him and say, look, you are the provider. I'm just your follower. I cannot do anything without you. I think we all just try to do too much ourselves and not give God the glory. I've learned that the people who have joy in their life are the ones who are cheerful and who are appreciative, understanding that there are going to be trials and tribulations, but still turning and repenting to God. 2 Corinthians 9, 6, and 7, King James Version, but this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. I mean, the Lord is talking about money and resources and through Paul here in his letter to the Corinthians church, or the church of Corinth. However, this is something that I think we all just need to embrace, that if you put in the very minimum and you are doing it with hesitant, or if you're hesitant in what you give to people, whether it be your employer or your family, then you can't expect to have financial success, to have joy, to have, you can't really reap a harvest you don't sow. That's a farmer term, I know. But if you just give and you give and you give, even what you think is beyond your means, and you do it joyfully and with appreciation, then you, my friend, are going to be a blessed person. I know I am. Doing this every day it's not a big financial gain for me. It's more of something I feel called to do. But continuing to give and give and give leads to more and more blessings. And for me, the blessing is just helping somebody on this channel, helping to encourage somebody, helping to save lives. I mean, we all watch the news. We know what they're talking about with extreme weather, but let's be real here. Not everybody gets hit hard, but those of us who are impacted, certainly our lives are changed by having an accurate forecast, being protected from potential tornadoes. I know we can't save everyone, but we can certainly try. So I thank you all for your time. I hope you have a blessed day. If you can pray for me, I appreciate that. Going through a lot of stuff right now, but you know what? I'm going to continue to show my appreciation to you, and I'm happy to pray for you, whether it be spoken or unspoken. You all mean a lot to me. Even if only a few hundred of you are watching right now, you still mean a lot to me, and I appreciate your time today. Hope you have a great Friday. God bless you. See you again in the morning.